Deleted session, April 23, 1981. Now, Ruber made an excellent connection today. His over-conscientiousness as a young person and his intense concern, over-concern, intense with the literal truth of any given situation, is and was largely his reaction to his mother's habitual, often mischievous lying pattern. He had not realized that early. His mother's pathological lying means that Ruber had to assess and reassess any given situation as a child. He determined not to be malicious as his mother was. His anxiousness led to the most severe examinations of conscience, such examinations being a recommended Catholic practice. It was also evident that one such memory carried with it a direct emotional response. That kind of response means that there is communication between, say, the present and the past areas of the psyche. The information came in a natural manner, which is, again, excellent. I do not want to rehash his entire early background, but it is important that he become aware of its emotional content. I wanted to make a few additional points. Ruber became aware of non-Catholic Christianity to any degree only after our sessions began. The sinful self is quite as evident there as it is in the Catholic Church. The Protestant version is often intermixed, however, with psychic organizations. In that light, as in the Catholic one, the female's guilt is seen as even larger than the male's, so that additional pressure is cast upon the women, who are indeed seen as spiritually inferior, or on the other hand painted as pure, pedestal-like individuals in the manner of the Blessed Virgin. That particular subject matter can be discussed at another time. Ruber has often wondered at the poor quality of most intuitional material, particularly since it is supposed to be so important. The truth, of course, is not intrinsically in the nature of the material itself, but in the very fact that it is almost exclusively translated in terms of Christian thought, however bizarre that interpretation might be. For that matter, such material often simply restates the entire concept of the sinful self in different form. Often that form is highly inflammatory. The main point is a good one to remember, however. Ruber's intuitions, his nature, his creative abilities, and his intellect have led him into a study of the nature of reality, as, again, he sought to find a larger framework of reference, and he has pursued that course vigorously even when he did not consciously see the continuity of such a project at any given time. The sinful self was highly suspicious of any such activity. I believe we have begun an excellent natural therapy in that regard. Ruber is working at all angles of the problem at other levels of consciousness now, and the sinful self is beginning to feel a new sense of give and take. Other portions of Ruber's personality do utilize our material also, of course, and we deal with a certain kind of natural pacing. It is an excellent idea to go over these sessions one at a time and keep the material in the forefront of consciousness for a while. When memories come concerning his background, then these can be used to provide a necessary feedback system. Ruber's feelings of panic can then be understood as originating in response to a highly complicated, intense early life and in concrete situations. There is no doubt that he was mistreated. Ruber's mind was concerned with the larger framework, however, in which his mother's life existed. He could not be satisfied with an answer like, "That is what life is," or with a simplistic denouncement of man's basic nature. Again, material I gave last evening fits well with this material. There will be specific references that come to Ruber, as today's emotional connection did, which will again not only lessen what panic remains, but show that the panic itself has a more or less reasonable basis, not in some formless fear but in specific events. The sinful self itself can also make such realizations once the door to communication is opened. You are bringing contemporary information into the past, freeing blockages and clearing the way for natural healing. Again, there will be a natural pacing and on the part of the entire personality, additional motion as the information is assimilated and adjustments made to a greater accommodation. The sessions themselves work to activate many different levels of activity and to provide source material. Many of Ruber's current attitudes, for example, will at least make more sense to him as he sees that they originated in response to situations against which a child had no recourse. Ruber did not tell anyone about his mother's lying, for example, not until he was in his teens, and he was too ashamed of how his mother often treated him to tell anyone. That treatment reinforced his beliefs that he must indeed be a wicked or sinful person. Remember all of this material again, in the light of what was said about his public image, where he felt he was expected to behave in an almost super-saintly fashion, for you have, of course, two completely different versions of the self there, each unreasonable. With the God of Jane, Ruber beautifully and accurately described his own experiences with beliefs, and at least hinted of his background. At the same time, he felt that he should be offering more, the public image, the saintly understanding, and so forth. Do you have questions? Ralph said, no, I guess not, except to continue with the one from last session. They said, I am pacing this session now, granting the 4 or so a week, according to his own experiences, so that the material can also be assimilated along the way. The last few sessions are highly important. Some of that material is now being used by the so-called sinful self itself, which is now open to new information. It is quite earnest in its own desire to be good or to feel a sense of grace in its being. So it does understand that kind of purpose. Rob asked, does it have any conception of the physical results that have come about in Ruber? They said, all in all, those results are considered by the sinful self now as regrettable but necessary, as perhaps the use of overly severe discipline or the use of punishment for the personality's own good, all of which makes perfect sense within the belief structure of the sinful self and the larger philosophical structure of Christianity itself. Rob asked, does the sinful self have any conception that its policies have now become self-defeating? They said, another difficult question. I will have to give a no answer in the light in which you asked the question. In the framework of the sinful self's points of reference and in the Catholic philosophy in which it is based, suffering for a good purpose, toward a good end, toward a good goal for the sake of the soul, is a virtue. The entire Catholic dogma is built about Christ's agony and death. Now to a portion of the personality believing in that system, Rupert's position makes hardly a ripple. That system regards the body as highly disruptive, heir to the lusts of the flesh, and so forth. Its discipline through suffering is one of Christianity's most appalling effects. The ideas of the flesh itself being graced also seemed quite blasphemous then to the sinful self. It is quite ready to reorganize its reasoning, however, once it is reached. In the past, it has been ignored. Another good question. Incidentally, it has been unaware of Rupert's own knowledge of the close connection between inspiration, for example, and the body's comfort and relaxation. It approves of inspiration, but it is the part of the personality that is also afraid of unofficial information because of the very belief system that gave it birth. Again, it is capable of such understanding, however, and it can change. Its motivation is to feel at one with a state of grace, at one with its place in the universe. That purpose is the same as Rupert's own, but its methods and understanding are still at a certain level, a level that can indeed be changed and re-educated. Ralph asked, is the sinful self that closely connected with the physical self, then, or did other parts of Rupert's personality bring about the symptoms because they knew of the beliefs of the sinful self? They said, I cannot answer the question as you gave it. Ralph asked, did the sinful self have help in creating the symptoms? In other words, they said, give us a moment. Save the question. I will restate it for you and answer it at another session. Ralph said, okay. They said, end of session, and I found good evening. Ralph said, thank you, the same to you.